Hi, Grant. EquiLend is a great vantage point on the market thanks to your DataLend arm. What have you seen as a trend across Q1 heading into Q2?
So we have a couple of vantage points actually. So NGT, the trading venue, is one, and then DataLend secondly. So not surprisingly, during the volatile period, NGT saw increased volume of activity. And then if you look at the data that sits outside of that, it's pretty representative. So securities lending revenue came down in the first quarter this year versus last year. But if you need to drill into the assets a little bit further to understand what the impact of recent volatility meant. And I don't think there's any surprises in there. Fees for fixed incomes fell overall, 13.1%, and fees for equities actually increased 11%. What does that mean? And that's telling us that actually during a market, equity market was falling, people needed to borrow securities to cover shorts. So fees went up and demand for fixed income went down as the market deleveraged to an extent. So look, I think it's the reality shows in the numbers, but I think technology is a key part of that. Also represents increases. I mean, we saw a huge increase of trading activity across NGT because it's just the easiest. I think not just NGT, but technology is the easiest way to execute when you're familiar with it during those periods.
How has EquiLend been preparing for SFTR readiness in light of the delay to the first implementation date?
Well, I think we were fully gearing up for the early implementation. I think the reality of market volatility, people having to work from home and be remote, has had an impact on resource and support of that process. For us, though, it was really just adapting to that change and working with our clients to see what they need at that point in time. That we've been ready from a technical point of view, we've been ready from an onboarding process, but just some practicalities for the clients makes some of the components challenging. And so I think it was a common sense approach to delay SFTR. What I call our product parallel environment is now in place, so that we've got clients testing live trade activity through the platform right now. So that we're very confident that come July, our clients are in a very good place, and we feel comfortable with those clients as well. But I don't think April was more a logistical challenge for everyone than anything else. So at the end of the day, SFTR is a report, and it's doing good things for the market as well as it's challenging. Bringing the market together for a consistent approach to report and be standardised around some of that information, it has been challenging and has a lot of infrastructure components that's brought together. But net for the long term, it's a positive. It means there's going to be more transparency, I think, around that market and more ease of connectivity going forward.
What's been the impact of volatility on regulation as far as EquiLend is concerned?
Volatility on regulation. So look, recent volatile periods has had huge implications on market. But you have to look at what's either being implemented right now and what's coming that could impact that further. And it's just some full process needs to go around that. So from an SFTR perspective, clearly, being remote, as we've mentioned before, means people are delaying some components of what they need to do from a reporting point of view. But volatile markets mean people have to be very quick at how they execute, cover shorts easily, find liquidity in the market to execute. Now, CSDR that's coming early next year brings another of huge changes to our market. So buy-ins, mandatory buy-ins, and fail charges being imposed very quickly on this market. I suppose focus is really on efficiency, and let's hope things like SFTR helps that efficiency as we connect more, we increase settlement rates, etc. But also it just means that our industry needs to come together and be more visible in liquidity in support of the broader capital market to be able to execute their liquidity much more seamlessly. especially when you focus on, I suppose, the less liquid markets, the corporate bond fixed income markets, or the less liquid equities across the globe, across Europe.
You have a webinar planned for the 4th of June. Can you tell me a little bit about this?
Yeah, very, very excited about it, actually. So, I mean, look, what better timing to get some lead figures from our industry and our industry bodies, to be clear, to come together. So, Frank Garrett from the RMA, Andy Dyson from ISLA, Godfrey de Wit from ICMA, Rob Ferguson from CASLA. So everyone has a voice, and everyone has an interesting perspective on life, and looking at how Europe has reacted in certain ways versus how the US and Canada deals with certain elements of their market is going to be a really interesting dialogue. And I suppose looking at the impact on what has happened so far, what it's meant for their industry in region, and how that's shaping our future. I think that some of the things we think about is our clients have gone remote. We're supporting their trading remotely, but what does it mean for I suppose, when they return to office, and what does return to office mean? And return to office now means that there's probably a more permanent work from home for some, or at least the option to be able to do it, but that has challenges. The regulator generally likes trading floors to be in a location, so I think that's delayed some people in relocation and working from home. But I think looking to the future, looking at what some of those challenges mean, look at what the regulations impose on our markets and what it means for the new connectivity is really important. It's really interesting to understand the difference between, I suppose, traditional sec finance versus the impact on the sort of global repo markets. There's some lessons to learn across there. I mean, looking at how the US is potentially at some point going into negative rates, something they've never had to do, where Europe's been quite used to it for some time, is one of the conversations we'll have. But no, our four panelists have decades of experience to bring in, and I'm sure we're going to have a robust debate around a number of components within that.
Grant, thank you very much for taking out time to speak with us at Securities Lending Times.